The night sky above the Valari border burned with flashes of blue light as a storm of strange energy danced across the void. A small human ship, silver and old, drifted through the chaos, its shields flickering weakly. Inside the cockpit, a man named Ryan gripped the controls, trying to keep the ship steady. The alarms screamed around him and sparks burst from the panels. "Hold together," he muttered as he fought the trembling steering rods. The storm had come out of nowhere, a twisting wave of energy his scanners could not read. He had been sent only to inspect a damaged relay post near the border of alien space. It was supposed to be routine, quiet, simple, but nothing was simple when you flew near the Valari Empire. The Valari were an ancient alien race, proud and elegant, known for their advanced technology and strict laws. They ruled hundreds of worlds and avoided contact with humans, calling them unpredictable and reckless. Ryan had heard the rumors that Valari soldiers would rather destroy a ship than risk letting a human cross their borders. The storm's energy struck again. His ship tilted, hit by a pulse of light that tore through the main engine. Flames burst behind him. Ryan slammed the emergency release and ejected the escape pod. The small pod spun away, cutting through the glowing blue storm before everything went black. When Ryan opened his eyes, the world was bright white and cold. He lay on a metal floor with lights shining down on him. Strange voices echoed nearby, sharp and clear, speaking in a language he did not understand. Slowly his vision cleared. Around him stood tall figures with smooth, pale blue skin, white armor, and glowing eyes. Valari guards, one stepped closer, holding a long staff that hummed with energy. "Human," the guard said in broken English. "You are in restricted space. You will come." Ryan raised his hands. "I mean no harm. My ship was damaged. I didn't choose to land here." The guards did not respond. They seized his arms and led him down a long hallway of shining crystal walls that pulsed with soft light. The air smelled like metal and rain. Everything looked too perfect, too silent. He was taken into a grand hall wider than any ship hangar he had seen. Golden columns rose high into a dome painted with constellations. At the end of the hall stood a throne, curved like a crescent moon, and upon it sat Queen Alara of the Valari Empire. She was tall and graceful, wearing silver armor that shimmered softly beneath the lights. Her long pale hair fell over her shoulders like liquid light. Her eyes, deep violet, studied him carefully, not with anger but with quiet judgment. The guards pushed Ryan to his knees. "This human entered Valari territory," one announced. "He claims it was accident." Alara lifted her hand slightly and the hall fell silent. Her voice was calm and smooth. "A human ship crashing at our border during a time of tension. A strange accident indeed." Ryan looked up, meeting her gaze. "Your Majesty, I swear I wasn't spying. My ship was hit by an energy storm. I had no choice." The Queen tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "You expect me to believe you came here by chance?" "Yes," Ryan said simply. "Believe me or not, but that's the truth. I'm an engineer, not a soldier." The hall filled with quiet whispers. The Valari guards looked shocked that a human dared speak so directly to their queen, but Alara did not seem offended. She looked closer, noticing the burns on his hands and the torn edges of his flight suit. He looked tired but calm. "You are far from your kind," she said. "Your people rarely fly this deep into our space." "I was on repair duty," he replied. "A relay post near the border went silent. I was checking it when the storm hit. I didn't even know I crossed your line until it was too late." Alara stood and slowly descended the steps of her throne. Each movement was graceful, silent, almost unreal. When she stopped before him, she was close enough that Ryan could see faint glowing lines across her armor, symbols of her royal house. She looked at him quietly for a long moment. "What do you think happens to those who enter Valari space without permission?" she asked. Ryan did not flinch. "I imagine it's not something good." A faint smile touched the corner of her lips. It disappeared just as quickly. "You are correct," she said softly. Then turning to her guard, she added, "Take him to the lower halls. I will decide what to do." Hours passed. Ryan sat in a cold cell made of crystal and light. There were no bars, only a glowing wall that hummed softly when he approached it. He thought of his team back home, of how they might never know what happened to him. His ship was probably lost in the storm, floating in silence. Then the wall shimmered, and a Valari officer entered, tall, stern, carrying a thin slate covered in symbols. "The Queen wants to see you," he said. Ryan followed him through bright corridors until they reached a large room filled with glowing machinery. The air thrummed with energy. It looked like an engine chamber, but far more complex. Queen Alara stood at the center, surrounded by engineers in white robes. She turned as he entered. "You said you were an engineer," she began. "Then perhaps you can explain why our energy core has been unstable for 3 days. My scientists cannot find the fault." Ryan blinked, surprised. "You want my help?" The Queen's tone remained calm. "Consider it your chance to prove you came here by accident. If you lie, the core will expose you. It does not forgive mistakes." He stepped closer to the large glowing sphere at the center of the room. Energy pulsed around it and readings on nearby panels jumped wildly. He studied the wiring, the power nodes, and the cooling arrays. It took him only a few minutes to see the issue, a resonance feedback loop caused by a damaged regulator. "It's not your system," he said finally. "It's the containment field. It's fighting itself. I can fix it, but I'll need some tools." Alara gestured to her staff. "Give him what he asked for." As Ryan worked, silence filled the room. Every Valari engineer watched him with curiosity, some with doubt. He used careful movements, his hands steady despite the danger. Sparks leaped from the cables, but he didn't stop. His focus was calm, almost patient. After an hour, he sealed the final panel and stepped back. "Try it now," he said. The Queen gave a small nod. One of her engineers activated the system. The sphere glowed brighter, its energy stabilizing into a smooth rhythm. The shaking stopped. The readings leveled out. For the first time in days, the chamber was quiet. The Valari scientists stared in disbelief. One whispered, "He did it." Alara walked closer, her expression unreadable. "You repaired what my best minds could not," she said softly. Ryan wiped the sweat from his brow. "Just fixed a feedback loop. It was nothing special." The Queen looked at him with faint surprise. "You risked being vaporized and you call it nothing?" He shrugged slightly. "Where I come from, fixing problems is what keeps us alive." For a moment, Alara said nothing. The silence between them was strange. Not cold, not warm, but full of thought. Then she turned to her guards. "Release him from the cell. He will remain in the palace until further notice." The guards hesitated, shocked by her command. But she looked at them once and they obeyed. As Ryan was escorted out, Alara watched him leave. Her thoughts were unreadable. For years, she had been taught that humans were careless and chaotic. Yet the man she met tonight had worked calmly inside a storm of energy without hesitation. That night, she stood by the window of her chamber, looking at the stars beyond her world. Her reflection in the glass showed a queen who had ruled without question. But something inside her shifted, a quiet curiosity she could not name. The human's ship might have fallen by accident. Yet his arrival had already disturbed the still air of her palace, and for reasons she did not understand, she did not feel anger. She felt something else, interest in the faint spark of trust. Morning light poured through the tall crystal windows of the Valari palace. The halls shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting the pale sun of the capital world. Ryan woke up on a soft bed that felt too perfect to belong to a prisoner. The room was quiet, with walls that glowed faintly. His clothes had been cleaned, and his small wound was bandaged with thin metallic fabric that seemed alive. For a moment, he wondered if this was a dream. Then the door opened, and a tall Valari officer entered, the same one who had escorted him last night. "The Queen requests your presence," the officer said. Ryan stood quickly, still unsure what to expect. "Am I still a prisoner?" The officer looked calm. "That depends on your actions today." He followed the guard through long corridors where every step echoed softly. Valari workers and soldiers turned to look at him as he passed. Some whispered, others simply stared. A human walking freely in the palace was not something anyone expected to see. At the end of the hall, massive silver doors opened into a bright chamber. The room was filled with glowing machinery, tall data pillars and floating holograms. Queen Alara stood beside a wide table covered with tools and energy crystals. Her presence filled the room with quiet authority. When she turned toward Ryan, her silver robe shifted like flowing light. "You worked well last night," she said. "But one success does not prove your loyalty." Ryan nodded. "I understand. What do you need me to do?" Alara gestured to the table. "This is the secondary power core of our orbital defense grid. It has been unstable for months. My engineers cannot fix it without risking collapse. I want you to examine it. You will work under supervision. If you cause damage, the grid could fail, and that would mean war. He walked closer, studying the object. It looked like a metal heart, pulsing with blue veins of energy. He could feel the vibration in the air. This system is old, he said quietly. Your people must have built it long ago. The Queen raised an eyebrow. Our empire is older than your species' first steps into space. Ryan smiled slightly. Then maybe you forgot how simple things can go wrong. Some of the Valari engineers frowned at his words, but Alara's expression softened, almost amused. You speak freely, human. Few would dare. Free speech is how we solve problems, Ryan said. Silence never fixes anything. Alara studied him for a moment, then nodded for him to begin. He examined the power core for hours. His hands moved with precision as he adjusted panels and checked circuits. The Valari engineers stood nearby, writing notes and whispering to each other. They could not understand how a human with simple tools was touching something that frightened their best scientists. As he worked, Ryan spoke quietly to himself, analyzing readings, adjusting the resonance field, and recalibrating the stabilizers. Sweat formed on his forehead. The hum of energy grew louder. At one point, sparks flew and several engineers stepped back, but Ryan stayed calm. Finally, after long hours, he pulled out a thin coil of damaged fiber. This was the problem, he said. A broken feedback link. It caused the field to loop into itself. You were feeding power faster than it could process. He replaced the coil with a new one from his toolkit and sealed the panel. The blue glow changed from violent flashes to a smooth rhythm. The Queen stepped forward. Is it fixed? Ryan nodded. Stable now. But you should add a cooling conduit. It will last longer. The room filled with quiet murmurs. The Valari engineers looked both surprised and embarrassed. Their complex systems repaired by an outsider in one day. Alara's eyes stayed on him. You did again what others could not, she said softly. How? Because I look for what people forget, Ryan replied. Machines are honest. They show the truth if you listen. There was silence in the chamber. Then Alara dismissed the others. Only she and Ryan remained. You risked yourself again, she said. You could have been burned alive if the field collapsed. He looked up at her. I've faced worse. My job back home was fixing things no one else wanted to touch. It's not bravery, just work. Alara tilted her head, studying him as if she was trying to understand something beyond his words. Your people value courage differently than we do. You act without waiting for orders. You fix without seeking reward. Ryan gave a small shrug. If something's broken, you fix it. Doesn't matter who built it. The Queen walked closer, stopping only a few steps away. Her voice lowered. You speak as if the universe is simple. He met her gaze. It usually is. We make it complicated. For the first time she smiled, faintly but real. You are either wise or foolish, she said. I have not decided which. That evening Ryan was invited to dine in the palace. The dining hall was enormous, with walls made of living crystal that glowed like the inside of a star. At the long silver table sat high-ranking Valari nobles, silent and graceful. Their eyes followed every movement Ryan made. Queen Alara entered, her presence commanding respect. She sat at the head of the table and gestured for Ryan to sit near her. The nobles exchanged looks of disbelief. A servant placed a plate in front of Ryan, a strange glowing dish that seemed to float slightly above the surface. He hesitated, unsure if it was safe to eat. Alara noticed and said softly, It is safe. Our food may look strange, but it will not harm you. Ryan nodded and took a small bite. The taste was light and cool, like sweet air mixed with fruit. It's different, but good, he said. Several nobles whispered among themselves, clearly offended by his plain words, but Alara looked amused. Your honesty is refreshing, she said. Most speak to please me. You speak what you think. I don't know how to speak any other way, Ryan said. The dinner continued with quiet conversation. Alara asked about Earth, its oceans, cities, and music. Ryan told her about the sound of rain on rooftops, the smell of soil after a storm, and how humans built things out of both curiosity and need. She listened closely, her violet eyes thoughtful. When the dinner ended, Alara rose and dismissed the nobles. Ryan stood too, unsure what to say. She looked at him and said, You may stay in the guest quarters. You are no longer a prisoner, he blinked. Why, you hardly know me, her gaze softened. You have shown more truth in 2 days than some of my own advisors show in years. Ryan nodded quietly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." As he turned to leave, she said, "My name is Alara. You may use it when we are not in court." He stopped, surprised. "That's kind of you." "Do not mistake it for kindness," she replied, though her tone held warmth. "It is trust. Earn it and it will grow. Break it and it will end." He met her eyes. "I'll try not to break it." Later that night, Ryan stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city below. The capital stretched far beyond sight, filled with towers that floated on beams of light. The air hummed with soft energy. He thought about how strange this world was, yet how calm he felt here. Inside the palace, Alara stood near her throne room window, her thoughts wandering. She remembered the look on the human's face when he worked on the power core, steady, unafraid. No greed, no pride, just focus and sincerity. For years she had ruled with logic and order. Emotions were seen as weakness among her people. But something about the human's open nature unsettled her calm world. The next morning, Alara summoned him again. "You will stay in the palace for now," she said. "You will assist our engineers on upcoming projects." "My people doubt you." "Prove them wrong." Ryan bowed slightly. "I'll do my best." "I believe you will," she said. As he left the hall, the guards looked at him with quiet curiosity. The rumor had already spread. The human who fixed the Queen's core, the one she allowed to dine beside her. Some whispered he was dangerous. Others said he had earned divine favor. But Ryan did not care about titles or attention. He simply worked. Over the next days, he repaired machines, studied alien devices, and offered simple solutions to complex problems. Each success drew Alara's attention. She began to visit the workshops more often, watching silently as he worked, learning how his mind approached challenges. In those quiet hours, something invisible began to grow between them. Not friendship yet, not love, but a bond built on understanding. When she finally spoke to him after another repair, her words were soft. "You make me question what I have always believed about your kind." Ryan smiled slightly. "Maybe that's good." Alara looked away, hiding a faint smile of her own. "Perhaps," she said. "Or perhaps it is dangerous." Outside the palace, the stars shimmered brighter that night. Neither of them knew that their connection would soon be tested by forces greater than either had faced before. The days passed slowly within the shining walls of the Vellery Palace. Ryan had grown used to the quiet hum of alien machines, the sound of distant footsteps in glass corridors, and the faint blue glow that filled every room. Though far from Earth, he found comfort in work. The machines spoke a language he understood, even when the people around him did not. Each morning he joined the team of Vellery engineers in the central lab. They watched him carefully, some with respect, others with quiet suspicion. The idea that a human could fix their sacred technology was still hard for many to accept, but results were stronger than pride. Every day, something that once failed began to function again under Ryan's hands. Queen Alara often came to the lab to observe. At first, she stood at a distance, silent and regal, her expression unreadable, but over time her visits grew longer. Sometimes she asked questions about his methods. Sometimes she only watched. Her presence no longer made Ryan nervous. It had become familiar, almost peaceful. One afternoon, while Ryan was testing a new stabilizer unit, Alara entered the room without the usual group of attendants. The engineers bowed and she motioned for them to leave. When they were alone, she walked closer to where Ryan was working. "Your progress continues to surprise my council," she said softly. "They ask how a human can understand systems our best minds struggle to maintain." Ryan glanced at her. "Maybe it's because I don't think too much about being right. I just try until it works." Alara smiled faintly. "Your people act before they hesitate. We are taught to hesitate before every action. Perhaps that is why we grow slower than you." He tightened a bolt and looked up. "Maybe we just break more things along the way." She laughed quietly, a sound rare in the halls of the palace. "And yet you keep building again. That is what fascinates me most about your kind. You fall, but you always stand." Ryan straightened, wiping his hands. "If we stop standing, we stop living. That's what being human means." Alara looked at him thoughtfully, her violet eyes softening. "You speak of life as if it is a battle." He smiled a little. "Sometimes it feels that way." That evening, Ryan was invited once again to dine in the royal hall. This time, fewer nobles attended, The Queen preferred smaller gatherings now where conversation could flow freely. As the two sat at the long table, the light from the floating lamps painted the walls in gentle gold. Alara spoke first. When I was young, I was told humans were dangerous, impulsive, and emotional. I believed that for many years, Ryan nodded. We can be all those things, but we also care. That part doesn't always get noticed. She looked down at her cup. Perhaps I judged too easily. In you, I see both danger and kindness. It is unusual. I'm not special, Ryan said. Any human in my place would try to survive the same way. Ilara's tone softened. Survival alone does not earn trust. You have earned mine. Ryan met her gaze. That means a lot coming from a queen. For a brief moment, the air between them felt warm. Not as ruler and visitor, but as two people who understood one another in silence. As the days turned into weeks, Ryan's place in the palace became something more than duty. The guards stopped watching him so closely. The engineers began to ask for his help without hesitation. Even the servants greeted him with quiet respect. But the person he saw most was Alara. She often called him to her study, a tall room filled with floating crystal screens that recorded star maps and royal decrees. Sometimes they discussed technical issues. Sometimes they spoke of home. Ryan told her about Earth's sunsets, about cities filled with light, and about how humans played music to share feelings words could not carry. Alara listened carefully, her face calm but her eyes full of thought. Your world sounds full of chaos, she said once, and yet there is beauty in it. There is, Ryan agreed. It's messy, but it's real. You can feel it everywhere, in laughter, in pain, in change. She looked toward the window where the stars shone like silver dust. We forgot what change feels like long ago. Our empire is old, proud, but tired. We have built walls so high that even light cannot escape. Ryan studied her face. For the first time, he saw not the queen of an empire, but a woman carrying the weight of 1,000 years of duty. Then maybe it's time someone opened a window, he said. Alara turned to him with a small smile. Perhaps that someone is you. One night, as the twin moons rose above the palace, a faint alarm echoed across the corridors. Ryan was in the lab when he heard it. The engineers froze, their eyes wide. What's happening? He asked. A system breach, one of them said quickly. The defense shield has been targeted by unknown ships. Within minutes, soldiers ran through the halls and the air grew tense. Ryan followed the crowd toward the command chamber, where Alara stood before a large holographic map of the system. Red marks blinked near the border. She turned to her officers. Are they pirates or scouts? We are not sure, Your Majesty, one replied. They are masking their signal. Alara's jaw tightened. Raise the defense grid. Prepare the fleet. Ryan stepped closer. Maybe I can help track the signal? The officers hesitated, but Alara nodded. Do it! Ryan sat at the console and began adjusting the alien interface. His fingers moved quickly, rerouting data streams until the map shifted. The red marks became clear. A small fleet of ships moving toward the capital. They're not pirates, Ryan said. They're organized. Military pattern. The Queen's expression hardened. A neighboring faction, perhaps. They have long envied our energy supply. Then they're testing your border, Ryan said. They think you won't respond fast enough. Alara looked at him. And will we? He smiled faintly. You will if you let me help. Her eyes narrowed in thought. You are bold for an outsider. Sometimes boldness saves time, he said. Over the next few hours, Ryan worked with the Valari defense teams. He helped synchronize their shield frequencies and improve the response algorithms using simple human logic, patching errors the Valari had overlooked for centuries. When the enemy ships launched their first energy bursts, the shields held steady. Alara watched from the command deck, her heart calm but proud. You adapt faster than any strategist I have known, she said. Ryan kept his focus on the screen. We learn fast when survival depends on it. The battle lasted only an hour. The enemy fleet withdrew after their attack failed. When silence returned, the Queen turned toward Ryan. You have saved us again. He wiped his hands, smiling tiredly. Just fixed what needed fixing. She looked at him for a long time. You speak as if saving lives is nothing more than a repair job. Sometimes it is, he said quietly. Later that night, Alara called him to her private balcony overlooking the shining city. The air was cool and the stars shimmered like tiny fires in the distance. You could have left when your ship crashed, she said softly. Yet you stayed. You could have escaped during the confusion of battle, but you helped instead. Why? Ryan leaned on the railing. Because running never fixes anything. I didn't come here to cause harm, and I guess I stayed because I saw something worth helping. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Something worth helping. Or someone. Ryan hesitated, but smiled gently. Maybe both. Alara looked away, but a faint warmth touched her face. You are strange, human. You speak of duty as if it comes from the heart, not the crown. Maybe that's the difference between us, he said softly. You were born to rule. I just try to do what feels right. Alara stepped closer, her voice quiet. And yet your way seems stronger. Ryan looked at her, unsure what to say. For a moment, no words were needed. The silence between them spoke enough. A silence not of distance, but of growing connection. When the night breeze brushed past, Alara finally said, You may not know it, but you have changed how I see your kind. You have changed how I see myself. Ryan nodded slowly. Then maybe something good came out of the crash after all. From that night onward, the Queen often sought his company not for counsel, but for conversation. They spoke about stars, about time, about the small things that kept hope alive. Sometimes they walked through the palace gardens where glowing trees sang with soft hums. Sometimes they shared quiet moments on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker like distant constellations. The court began to whisper. That the Queen smiled more often. That her gaze softened when she looked at the human. But Alara ignored the whispers. She had spent too long ruling through fear and silence. Now she found peace and understanding, and perhaps something even deeper beginning to take root. Ryan did not know what their bond meant, or where it would lead. He only knew that in this alien world of glass and stars he was no longer alone, and neither was she. The palace felt different after the attack. The air carried a quiet tension. Guards moved faster, voices spoke lower, and every system in the capital was on constant watch. Ryan could sense the change. He spent long hours in the labs strengthening the defense network while Valari engineers hurried around him. They now trusted him, but fear still lived in their eyes. The attack that had failed once might return stronger. Queen Alara watched from her throne room balcony. The lights of her city shimmered far below, yet her thoughts were heavy. She had ruled through calm diplomacy for decades. Now the neighboring factions were testing her strength because they saw weakness in her kindness toward a human. That evening she summoned her council. The tall chamber echoed with the sound of boots and rustling cloaks as high officers gathered. Ryan stood quietly near the entrance, invited only as a technical advisor. One of the elders, Lord Tereth, bowed sharply. Your Majesty, the neighboring factions have united their fleets. They claim the Queen has broken tradition by giving power to an outsider. Another counselor added, They call him your pet human. They say he corrupts the Empire's purity. Alara's gaze grew cold. Purity means nothing if it blinds us to progress. He saved this Empire twice. You speak of him as if he is a threat, but it is fear that weakens you. Tereth's tone hardened. The Empire stands on ancient law. No Valari ruler may place a foreign life above her own people. Ryan stayed silent, though he felt the sting of their words. He did not belong to this world, yet he had given everything to help it survive. Alara turned toward him. You may speak. Ryan looked at the council. I'm not here to take anyone's place. I just fix what's broken. If that offends your law, maybe the law needs fixing too. The council chamber fell silent. Tereth's expression darkened. The human speaks without respect. Alara raised her hand. He speaks truth. Meeting is over. The council bowed unwillingly and left the hall. Only Ryan remained with her. When the doors closed, she let out a slow breath. They fear change more than war. They're afraid of losing what they understand, Ryan said quietly. Change always scares those in power. Alara looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. Do humans never fear? Always, he said. We just move anyway. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. That may be why your kind survives everything. The next morning brought grim news. The border beacons flashed red. An enemy fleet had entered Valari space. Hundreds of ships, dark and heavy, moving fast toward the capital. Inside the control chamber, officers rushed between consoles. Ilara stood at the center, calm but resolute. Ryan worked beside the engineers, updating the shield sequences he had built days earlier. "Status of our outer defense?" she asked. "2 rings active," an officer replied. "The third is unstable." Ryan checked the readings. "Their signal jammers are targeting the 3rd ring. They know your weakness." "Can it hold?" Ilara asked. He shook his head. "Not without direct manual control from the core station." "That station is on the outer rim," said the officer. "No ship can reach it under enemy fire." Ryan looked up. "I can." Ilara turned sharply. "You would be killed. I built the sequence. I know the path. If I reach the control hub, I can stabilize the ring remotely." The Queen hesitated. Her voice softened. "You risked your life too many times for us already." He smiled slightly. "Maybe one more time will make it count." After a long pause, she gave the order. "Send him with a small escort. Protect him at all costs." The journey to the rim station was silent except for the hum of the shuttle. Outside, the stars were streaks of white fire. Ryan sat beside a Valari pilot, reviewing the data feed. Enemy signals surrounded the area like wolves. When they arrived, the station's outer shell shook under bombardment. The moment they landed, Ryan ran through smoke-filled corridors toward the main console. The air smelled of ozone and metal. He began rerouting the circuits manually while the soldiers guarded the door. Alarms screamed. The system fought him with overload warnings, but he kept going. Sweat rolled down his face. Sparks flew across the panel. "Almost done," he said through gritted teeth. The floor trembled as another blast hit the outer hull. A soldier shouted, "They're breaking through!" Ryan slammed the last switch. The control ring's light turned from red to blue. Power surged outward, linking with the other 2 rings. The defense field stabilized, shining like a vast silver wall around the planet. He fell back, breathing hard. "Tell the Queen it's done." The soldiers dragged him back to the shuttle just as part of the station exploded. The pilot launched them away, and the blue glow of the shield covered the world behind them. In the capital, Ilara stood on the command deck watching the shield ignite across the sky. The enemy fleet's attacks bounced off harmlessly. Relief spread through the crew. "Signal from the rim station," an officer said. "The human succeeded. He's returning." Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling a strange wave of emotion, pride and fear mixed together. "Prepare to receive them," she said. When the shuttle landed, she went down herself. Ryan stepped out, clothes scorched, face covered with dust. The guards moved to escort him, but she stopped them with a gesture. She walked forward, her silver armor catching the morning light. "You did it," she said. He nodded tiredly. "Barely." For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said softly, "You have saved my people again, even when they doubted you." Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe now they'll believe I'm not here to hurt anyone." "Some will," she replied. "Others will never see past what you are." "Then I'll let my work speak for me." Ilara looked at him for a long time. Something in her heart changed, quiet and certain. She could no longer deny what she felt. Respect, trust, and a warmth that went beyond duty. But peace did not last long. A council messenger ran into the hall that night, pale and trembling. "Your Majesty, the High Council has called for judgment. They claim you have broken royal code by keeping the human within the palace." Ilara's expression hardened. "They dare question the throne in a time of war? They say your affection has clouded your rule," the messenger whispered. Ryan stepped forward. "If I'm the problem, I'll leave." Ilara turned sharply. "No, you have done nothing wrong. They seek control, not justice." She walked to the window, staring at the glowing horizon. "For centuries the council served the crown. Now they want to chain it." Ryan stood beside her. "What will you do?" She looked at him, her voice steady. I will face them, alone. The next day, the royal hall was filled again. The council members stood in a circle, cold and stern. Ilara entered in her royal armor, every step echoing with strength. Ryan remained at the edge, guarded by soldiers. Lord Tareth spoke loudly. By sacred law, the Queen must not share power or affection with any foreign being. You have broken that law by your actions. The council demands his exile. Ilara's eyes blazed. Exile the one who saved your children, your homes, your lives, you call that law? Tareth's tone grew sharper. You defy the will of our ancestors. She raised her head proudly. Then the ancestors were wrong. The hall gasped. No ruler had ever spoken such words. Ryan took a step forward. Ilara, you don't have to. She stopped him with a look. I will not let them decide who stands beside me, Tareth shouted. Then you place a human above the council. Ilara's voice rang clear through the hall. I place truth above fear. I place honor above pride. And I place the one who defended our world above your empty titles. The hall fell silent. The counselors looked shaken. None dared speak. Finally, she turned to the guards. Remove no one. The council will remain under observation until further order. Then she looked toward Ryan. You are not to leave the palace until I have secured peace. Do you understand? He nodded. I understand. That night, Ilara stood alone in the garden. The stars shone gently above the glowing trees. Ryan found her there, silent and thoughtful. They will not forgive you easily, he said. I do not seek forgiveness, she answered. I seek what is right. He looked at her quietly. And what is right to you? Ilara turned toward him. What is right is what protects my people, and you have done that more than anyone. Ryan smiled faintly. You could have chosen the easy way. You didn't. She stepped closer, her voice calm. I chose the path that feels true. Perhaps that is what your people mean by courage. He looked into her eyes, seeing no crown, no throne, only a soul that had learned to care beyond rules. For the first time since his crash, Ryan felt at home. And for the first time in her long reign, Queen Ilara felt free. Days passed after the confrontation in the royal hall, yet the tension never left the palace. The council's words echoed through the city, spreading whispers among the people. Some said the queen had lost her mind. Others said she had finally remembered what it meant to rule with heart instead of fear. Ryan stayed in his quarters as ordered, spending most of his time repairing damaged equipment and watching the skies beyond the balcony. The defense shield shimmered faintly above the clouds, a quiet reminder of the battle they had survived together. But now the real war was within the walls. He knew Ilara faced pressure from every side. The council demanded she restore tradition. The generals warned her about rebellion. The public was divided. Some saw the human as a hero, others as a danger. He wanted to help her, but this was a battle no machine could fix. One night the door opened and Ilara entered quietly. Her silver robe flowed behind her like water. She looked tired but calm. I did not mean to wake you, she said. I wasn't asleep, Ryan replied. Too much noise in my head. She stepped closer. You worry for me. Anyone would, he said softly. They're trying to break you. Ilara shook her head. They can't, I have already made my choice. He frowned slightly. What choice? She looked out the window, her voice low. To stand by the truth no matter the cost. He studied her face, seeing both strength and sadness there. You don't have to lose everything for me. Her eyes met his. I am not losing anything worth keeping if it was built on fear. The next morning, the city gathered at the Central Forum, a vast open plaza surrounded by shining towers. It was rare for the Queen to speak in public, but this day was different. Soldiers lined the edges and thousands of citizens stood waiting beneath the pale light. Ryan stood on the balcony behind her, guarded but not hidden. The Queen stepped forward, her voice carrying through the air with calm power. People of Vallari, she began. For centuries we have lived by law and order, and those laws have kept us strong. But there are moments in history when law must bend to truth, when fear must bow to courage. The crowd listened in silence. Not long ago, she continued, a stranger fell from the sky. a human from a world far beyond our reach. Many saw him as a threat, but he has proven himself a protector, a builder, and a friend. He has stood where others ran, and he has risked his life for ours. She turned toward Ryan briefly before looking back at her people. You call him outsider, but I call him ally. You call him danger, but I call him proof that strength is not born from blood, but from heart. Whispers moved through the crowd. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others turned away in anger. Elara lifted her hand. I have made my choice. From this day, Ryan of Earth will serve as advisor to the throne, guardian of our defense systems, an honored guest of the Volari Empire. His actions have earned him a place among us. The plaza erupted, half in cheers, half in protest. The sound rolled like thunder, but the queen did not flinch. Her voice rose again, calm and firm. If this decision costs me my throne, then I accept that cost, but I will not betray the truth for the comfort of tradition. Ryan watched her with quiet awe. The woman who once ruled through silence now spoke with unshakable strength. After the speech, the palace became a storm of movement. Council members demanded an emergency vote. Generals debated loyalty, but the people's hearts had begun to shift. News of the humans' courage spread faster than fear could follow. Workers, soldiers, and even children spoke his name with quiet admiration. That evening, Elara found Ryan again on the balcony overlooking the glowing skyline. The city below buzzed with light like a living star. You did it, Ryan said softly. You stood against all of them. She smiled faintly. No ruler stands alone. You reminded me of that, he shook his head. I didn't remind you. You already had it in you. For a while they stood in silence, the wind moving softly through the open arches. Elara, he said finally, when my ship crashed, I thought I'd die here. I never imagined I'd find peace instead. She looked at him quietly. Peace is rare. When it finds you, hold it, he smiled. That's what I'm trying to do. Her voice grew gentle. When the stars are calm again, when no one threatens our borders, you should return home. Your people must be waiting. He looked down at his hands. Maybe, but I'm not sure where home is anymore. Her expression softened. Then perhaps you have more than one. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the council's anger faded. The people accepted the queen's choice. The empire began to change, not through war or fear, but through quiet example. Ryan's knowledge helped rebuild damaged colonies. He trained engineers, shared ideas, and listened to the Volari scientists as equals. At first, some worked beside him only because the queen ordered it. But soon they began to come by choice, curious about his different way of thinking. Human methods, they called them. Simple, practical, and full of heart. Elara often visited the workshops, not as ruler but as companion. The palace, once filled with cold silence, now carried the sound of life and hope. One evening, as the sun set behind the towers, Ryan was in the garden fixing a small drone that watered the glowing plants. Elara walked toward him, her silver dress reflecting the fading light. You never stop working, she said softly. He looked up and smiled. Machines don't rest. Someone has to keep them honest. She laughed gently. You still see everything as a problem to fix? He nodded. Maybe because I've seen what happens when people stop trying. Elara stood beside him, watching the light fade. You have given my people more than safety. You gave them curiosity again. Ryan looked at her. You gave them hope. I just gave them tools. For a moment their eyes met in silence. The air between them felt light, peaceful, and full of meaning. Later that night, the queen hosted a gathering in the throne hall. Not a council meeting, but a celebration of renewal. The great hall glowed with soft light, and musicians played quiet notes that echoed like wind through crystal. Ryan stood near the side, dressed in clean white garments gifted by the palace. He felt out of place among the shining figures of the Volari elite, yet when Elara entered, her gaze found him first. As she approached, the room fell silent. She stopped before him and said, For all you have done, words are not enough. But still I must say them. Thank you, Ryan. He bowed slightly. It's been an honor, Your Majesty. Tonight you are not my subject, she said. You are my equal. The guests bowed as she lifted a silver emblem and placed it gently on his shoulder, a symbol of unity between their worlds. The hall erupted in applause, not of fear but respect. For the first time, the human and the queen stood together before both species as allies. When the celebration ended, Alara and Ryan walked through the quiet palace gardens. The stars shimmered above them like rivers of light. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked softly. "Sometimes," he said. "But every time I look up at these stars, it feels less far away." She smiled. "Perhaps distance is not measured in space, but in understanding." He looked at her, thoughtful. "Then you've brought our worlds closer than any map ever could." They reached the edge of the garden where the glowing trees formed a ring of silver light. The wind carried the scent of strange flowers and the hum of distant engines. Alara turned to him, her voice low. "You changed my world, Ryan. I once believed duty meant living without feeling. You showed me that strength can exist beside compassion." He answered quietly. "You changed mine too. I used to fix machines. Now I believe even hearts can be repaired." For a moment, neither spoke. The stars above seemed to listen. Then Alara said, "The future is uncertain, but whatever it brings, I wish for one thing, that you remain by my side. Not as servant, not as guest, but as the one I trust beyond all." Ryan looked at her, his voice steady. "Then that's where I'll stay." The night deepened, calm and clear. From the highest tower, the queen looked down upon her shining city. Beside her stood the human who had once fallen from the sky, the one who had turned an empire's fear into hope. Across the galaxy, stories of the Valari queen and her human advisor spread among the stars. Some called it a legend of unity, others a lesson in courage. But to Alara and Ryan, it was simply the truth of what happens when two worlds meet not in battle, but in understanding. It had begun as an incident, a crash, a mistake, a moment of chaos. But it became a bond strong enough to change the course of empires. And now, every night beneath the endless sky, the queen no longer sat alone on her throne. The human who once fell by accident now stood beside her by choice, not as a guest, not as a savior, but as the presence she wished to see at the end of every day and the beginning of every dawn.